Hey everybody, what's up? Big Jason. Welcome to the latest episode of the Breakthrough Email Marketing Show. Today, we're doing a special one with Adam Tuttle of ActiveCampaign. We're going to cover everything that's amazing and easy to do with ActiveCampaign, answer your questions, do demonstrations. Welcome to the show, Adam. I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So guys, as you know, Google Hangouts has a slight delay, so if you want to chat in real time with us in our private Breakthrough Email Marketing Skype group, load Skype and then type in breakthroughemailmarketing.com/Skype, and it'll automatically transport you to the private Skype group. Just no chit chat, no links, all about today's show. I'll be monitoring questions. We already have some good questions. All right, so let me share my screen. First thing we're going to talk about is automations. Adam, man, I love the new automation interface and how it all works. It's looking pretty sweet.
Yeah, we've been making a lot of big changes, and I think there's even some more things coming out in the near future here, so definitely improving upon it for sure.
Awesome. So there's a lot of things we can go over. Maybe we'll come back to some more average things that people do, but let's answer a specific question off the bat. Someone asked, they have a form and they've set up some custom fields. They've asked a couple questions, and so they want to do an automation where they do one thing or the other based on what they answer. So how can they do that?
Sure. There's actually a couple ways that you could approach this. So why don't you just tell to start when a form is submitted, so the third one over there.
Okay.
And we'll go ahead and just choose any random form is fine. So there's the first way is actually right on this page here. You have the option to segment. So sometimes instead of having one automation that's trying to do everything for you, people will actually create, maybe let's say you had 3 radio buttons, all yes or no answers, and depending on what people selected, you wanted different automations to go off. Instead of having one automation that's trying to do everything, they'll actually create 3 separate automations and then use this segment to filter those answers, so that data. So that's one way that it can be done. I think that if you're trying to do an automation that's pretty complex, it might be better to take this approach right away, because when you start adding like 3, 4, 5 different conditional statements into things, your automations can get out of hand pretty quickly. And so just for the sake of keeping things clean and concise, sometimes it's a little easier to take that approach. So why don't we instead of go ahead and just you can X out the little segment box there and go ahead and say add start.
Okay. And we actually had that problem with one of my enterprise clients, right? The automation was getting way too big and cumbersome and too hard to manage.
Yeah, and what we did in that case was we actually just built one because we knew that they'd all take a similar flow. The content will be different. So once we got the first one built, then we just copied it a couple times,
right?
And then changed the filter. And so again, I think that if it can just start getting out of hand, and really you want to make sure that your automations always have a purpose. So if they're having 5 or 6 purposes, sometimes it starts getting a little bit sloppy, and I think it's better to just create a second automation or whatever you need. The next way you could do it is you can always use if-else statements. So if you knew that like something like was a condition, and it was only going to be maybe one of those answers. So let's say that you had a radio button, which can only have one answer, but you gave like 4 different options. You could use this where you look at a custom field, and then you kind of go through and say, if they've answered this, then take this path. If they answered, the next one down. But you're going to have to keep building that logic out and ask every question. So this kind here is probably my least favorite, simply because if you have like even 3 or 4 questions or options, you now have a lot of automations to start building out. And again, it starts getting really big really fast. And I would rather just keep them in separate ones, because it's a lot easier for me to manage in the long run. The other way that you could do it, which I think is actually probably one of the most underutilized methods, is if you could go ahead and create a campaign. Just add any email into it.
Can we just go into the first part of this if they did want to do it this way?
Sure. So you could say like if the ActiveCampaign show is yes, and then we hit OK.
And if they're similar, you could do contains.
Yep, you can do contains, or like especially if you're doing like checkboxes.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have a checkbox, you should probably use a contain, because a checkbox could have multiple answers. So
Sure.
somebody might be able to select 2 or 3. So know that you have some options for it. You're not limited to it has to be this. You do have different options of conditions you can set in. And then you go ahead and once you hit that, you put in whatever the word or phrase or whatever it is in the custom field, and then you can click OK, and then that would create
Right.
it for you.
And then what if they had 3 or 4 different custom fields and different questions, and they wanted a combination? So they wanted someone that answered B on the first question combined with those that answered B and also answered C on the third question.
Sure. So you can hit the plus where you can add a condition. I believe that you can add up to 5 like action conditions. So that's looking for things like did they open, do they have a custom field value as we're using in this case. One thing to make sure is you'll see on the left hand side you have the and or.
Right.
If you say and, it's going to force it to have both of them. So they
Right.
have to have both in order to proceed. If you say or, it could have one or the other. Sometimes that gets people a little bit confused, especially when they're first getting started with automation. So that's something to note. If you've never done that before, make sure you know what those two differences mean, because it is a big difference in them,
Sure.
for sure. And then, like you said here, you can put in your different conditions, as it were, and then click OK, and then that would
Right.
now force it to have both of these in order to go on to that next step, or to be matches yes or no.
Right.
Again, depending on how you have it set up.
Sure. Cool.
So.
All right. So what's the way you'd like to show?
Sure. So go ahead and just click the plus button and add add an email in. So from sending options, you can just add in an email. Here. Just call it whatever you want. This is called conditional content. And basically what conditional content does is it takes, so you have your email design here, but it'll take certain sections. So whether it be a text area, an image box, really any content area here, it'll take it and only show it if somebody maybe has a field. And again, you're using that segment builder, so you're looking for the conditions that you specify, and so this will put in it's basically doing an if-else logic to say, if it contains, if the field contains yes, then go ahead and show this. If it doesn't, it won't show that block. And so people will actually build. I saw one guy, he had 45 different sections in a single email. So the email was huge on when it was sending out, but then once he actually sent it, it allowed it to be made conditional. So it was only probably 2 or 3 sections per person.
Did it cause a delay having that much conditionals in it?
I mean, if you're sending to a list of maybe 200,000 people, it might, but sending to any lists that are probably less than 50, 60,000, it's not going to cause anything noticeable, because it's doing it actually as it's sending out. It's just telling it what to do. So it shouldn't cause you any problems. And for him, in his case, he had a medium-sized list, nothing huge, but he did that all the time, and there wasn't any problems for him. So.
Okay. So here we go with the conditional content block.
Yep. So again, this is looking at whether it be a field, an email address, whatever. You can put in, just like we did before with the if-else statements or the segments. It's using the exact same kind of logic. It's now just related to a specific content area rather than the whole email itself. It's actually literally putting in based on who's viewing it. And you can do this on tags, opens, fields, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I really love the tags part. There's events, region, all that good stuff.
Site tracking, all that kind of stuff too. And so that would be the third way. So that would be probably the 3 ways that I would recommend. I'm sure that there's other creative solutions out there, but those would be the 3 that would be most commonly used or recommended by us.
Right. So real quickly, you want to just cover some scenarios where they would use equals versus doesn't equal, greater than, and all that?
Sure. So equals is going to be an exact match. It's literally looking for, word for word, letter for letter. That's what it's going to match to. So for example, let's say if you use contains, maybe you want to say, does it contain gmail.com in the email address? Well, the front half of the email could be anything that you wanted it to be, right? But this is looking for just more of that broad scope, or people will often do that for phone numbers. So they'll say if the phone number contains, 773, which is our area code here in downtown Chicago. So things like that, where it's just kind of a big picture, does it have this in there? Whereas the equal or does not equal, these are looking for exact matches. So if you had like a field value of yes, and you put in, it's going to look for exactly yes or exactly no or whatever it might be.
Right.
And then is less than or greater than. These are typically used for things that have like monetary values or numerical values. So if it's greater than 500, or a date field. If it's greater than March 25th, that would be for tomorrow on, or if it's behind that, then it would be anything in the past. And so those are how the greater thans typically work, either for dates or numeric values.
Awesome. All right, so we have a question about the new content editor, or the new editor. I want to use conditional content in your new editor with your templates, but it only allows me to use if-else based on blocks and not on text level.
Yeah, it's always been on the block level for us, so even on our old designers. Now, the really old, like HTML designer, that one you could do it for specific text areas, but otherwise, like it is based on blocks now. And with our other drag and drop editor that had come out about 1.5 years ago, that one was based on blocks as well. And so that's what we use now. We've kind of switched to that method. So unfortunately, like I said, unless you're like coding it yourself, like as a regular HTML template, there's really not a way to get around that, because it's just the way the whole designer is built. It goes back to the infrastructure of how it's built on the back end now.
Awesome. Do you know when the new dashboard is rolling out to everyone?
To everyone?
Well, they have to request the email designer beta to get that.
Yeah, they have to get the request the email designer beta right now. You can email Jason at ActiveCampaign.com. That'll put you into the beta, usually within an hour or so. And then probably we were planning within the next few weeks to start rolling out for like new accounts created. We'll have the new designer in it by default. And then once that's kind of completed and we're making sure everything's stable there, then we'll roll it out to all new customers. So my guess would be 4 to 6 weeks, but that's purely a guess at this point, depending on how many problems we find along the way.
Right. Okay, let us go through contacts, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to fire them away. So what are some of the good segments that people could be making as far as targeting their messages based on what's available?
Sure. I think one of the big things that, and I'm trying to push people more and more towards this, is, right now people, especially like opens, so people can look for under actions. You have the ability to look for opens or link clicks. I think that when you're doing any advanced searches or building segments or things like that, looking for opens is a tremendous thing, especially when people are first coming into your automations. And the reason that I kind of say that is for engagement management, when you're working with people, let's say that you send out 10 emails to somebody and they never open any of them. Gmail hates that. And they're much more likely to start putting you into spam boxes if they're noticing that a lot of Gmail addresses are not open in your email. And other services are kind of coming around to that. So what you can do here is say, like, maybe anyone who's opened like your last 5 campaigns, especially if you know that they went out to the whole list, and you could put in the names of those campaigns and stuff like that, because again you can add in multiple conditions. And look, now it doesn't give you time frames, at least at this point, where you could say, like, find me anyone that's opened an email in the last 6 months. But it will allow you to focus in and narrow down. So being kind of generic, but opens, link clicks, things like that, are definitely important, as well as tags. Like you kind of said, you really like using tags, finding combinations of tags. So you could say if they have this tag and they have this tag, or if they're in a certain list and they have a certain tag, then send them off. Things like that. It does honestly come down a little bit to the user and
Right.
how they have it set up. So I have to kind of keep it somewhat generic here because you use tags really heavily, Jason, on some stuff, and you use a lot of tags that are either looking at lists or like webinars that people have attended, things like
Yeah.
that. But some people are really like much they're not as heavy on the tag side of things, so they might look at other things like specific link clicks in a specific email. They want to find anybody who's ever done that, and then they'll apply a tag to it. But so again, it's kind of a broad question, but I think the main question or thing that you should do if you're using this is asking what provides value to me.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because again, you might have a brick and mortar store, you might be an e-commerce store, you might be like a marketing guru, whatever it is. You have to find what works for you and the values and the data that works for you, and it's not going to be the same for everybody just because they have a different process.
Sure.
And so, asking those questions will take you a long way in teaching you how to look for segments that are, can be isolated or used effectively by on your end.
Definitely. Thanks, man. I have to say, I think it's pretty badass that you guys allow us to name our links. It makes things so much easier.
Yeah, and some people, really like that. You know what I mean? So it's one of those kind of hidden gems. I think not
Yeah.
everyone knows about it, but the people that use it seem to love it a lot.
Yep. All right, we got a few questions coming in. Let me get those. If you guys want the beta, the simplest way is just to go to activecampaign.com and get on live chat and request it. Is there an email address that we can give them?
Yeah, actually the best way is just to email Jason at activecampaign.com, because even if you come in the chat, we're going to tell you to email Jason. So
that's not me. That's little Jason.
Yeah, little Jason. He's still like 6'4", but a little smaller than you still.
All right. Let's see. How solid is the site tracking on the checkout thank you page visits, then triggering a tag, add paid, remove? Okay, I think, Steven, can you be a little more clear? You're all over the place. But what I think he's trying to say is the site tracking reliable enough to be like, if you're going to use it on all your checkout pages, is that as reliable as tagging people? So I think he's probably going to want to do abandoned basket scenarios and tag people based on products.
Yeah, the site tracking is, once you get it rolling, I think it's one of those things that if you can get it working for yourself, it's very accurate. There is a learning curve to it for sure, simply because people kind of expect, well, I just dropped the code in my site, and now it tracks everything. And I'm looking for like just a generic URL, but you need to be like very exact. So if you're telling an automation to start when someone say visited a URL like 6 times, you need to make sure that it's exactly what is shown in that URL when it's going there. So I think yes, it is very accurate, but you definitely need to fine tune it for your site, and especially like when you're using like the event tracking and things like that as well. I think really I wouldn't rely on just one or the other, especially if I wanted to do that. I would probably do a combination. I would say use the site tracking to add tags, and then go on from there. And the reason I say that is that site tracking, you go to the contact record, you look in it, it has this big long line of URL code, and we're actually working on improving that in the future. But I think that when you can add a tag sometimes, that's a lot faster, especially because you can filter by tags and things like that. So I would say honestly, like, you should probably be using a combination of the two to optimize the platform as a whole.
Yeah, that's what I do myself. All right. So there's a few people that have been to emailresponsewarrior.com/AC and they're doing a free trial right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what are the restrictions on the free version, and is it time sensitive? Is it like going to go away or shut down after a certain period?
Yeah, so the free account really has, right now, it's 14 days long. So after 14 days, it basically takes you to a billing page where you can either upgrade. If you ever needed like a few day extension, just let us know. That's a great time to jump in the chat. We can extend out the trial a few days. The limitations on it are 100 contacts and 100 emails sent. So it's not really designed to be used as like sending 50,000 contacts as a small test. We used to, as of last year, we used to have a much more of like a freemium model, and we've kind of moved away from that, just really to try to provide better support to the people that are actually paying for the service. As our business has been growing more and more over the last couple of years, we offering the free model and then unlimited support to all the free accounts wasn't really working out that well. So we decided instead to kind of go for the paid model, but then trying to up the support for the people that actually have a paid service.
Sure. And what would you say is the big difference between the front end version of the paid versus the plus?
Sure. So the basic plans, the biggest difference is from a feature standpoint. The basic plans are really designed for people that want to have, email marketing and the marketing automation. They're not looking to really go beyond that. They don't want to use the deals, which is our CRM. They don't want to use lead scoring. There's a few other differences, more users and things like that. But those two, from a feature standpoint, those are the biggest that you have. The basic is really set up to be just for that kind of email marketing and marketing automation. The plus is to more users, the CRM, lead scoring, kind of things like that. So it's a little more feature heavy for sure.
Cool, and we're definitely going to cover lead scoring in just a little bit, guys. You definitely, I recommend using lead scoring. I like that. All right. Okay, so Anthony says, I've sold a lot of products over the years, and I'd love to segment my customers by product purchase. Know who bought more of one product, but I'm concerned about bringing in emails that will bounce, yet I'd like to know who bought what. That's my biggest challenge now when I do an email campaign. I can't easily purge the folks that purchased without removing them from the list I emailed. Okay. No, Anthony, does that make any sense to you?
A little bit. I think that the question is kind of like you have a lot of data on users, but some of them might be bounced, but you don't really have a way to bring them in to the system and try sending to them without knowing if they're bouncing / losing their data. Is that along the right lines, do you think?
It might be. Anthony, if you could comment again and break it down. Do one point at a time. We have a lot of questions. If someone wants to come live so they can explain it, if there's a question that's kind of hard to explain to us, let me know and I can actually make you live. Just make sure you don't have any background noise and just let me know. Does the free trial start when you import your list or when you sign up?
It starts as soon as you sign up.
All right, so let us go into lead scoring.
All right, sounds good.
So here we are. So why don't you just go over the basics of why they want to use lead scoring and what's a sample scenario?
Sure. So lead scoring basically just assigns a contact a numeric value for something. There's kind of a couple ways that lead scoring is approached, like industry-wide. One is that the company that you're using, so your provider, will actually just determine a score for you. We took the other approach where we allow you to actually create your own scores. The reason we did this is because we understand that not every business needs the same thing to tell them what somebody is valuable to them. So for example, Jason might have a 3-email welcome automation, and based on the links that people are clicking, they should be getting different scores on those link clicks simply because it's that first interaction with people, and he's kind of judging it on that. So you can see here on Jason's screen that we have 2 scores already created at this point. And so each of these scores, when you looked in someone's contact record, would show up as an individual score. And then if you go into the edit button of either of these, you can see that we have rules that are determining the scores. And so you can actually add or remove points. You can, add as many points as you want, or as a few points. It doesn't have to be, 10 points. It can be anything really. One thing that I would say is when you're using lead scoring, it's one of those tools that's amazing if you use it well. One of the biggest problems that I see is people just keep adding in rules. So you see here if we have, you can add in like rules. I've seen something where they had 50 different rules and they were literally adding in new rules to the same score all the time, but there was like no rhyme or reason for it. So lead scoring is only going to be as valuable as the thought that you put into it. So in this case, I think where you can do it, like I said, one way that I've done it before is I have a customer who they have a 3-email welcome automation, and in each of those emails they have a link. So for every email or every link that they click, they get 15 points, and then also they get 10 points for every open or email that they open. And so that helps. Those scores are actually side by side in the contact record, and then it helps give a ratio. So they can see, wow, they opened all the campaigns, but they never clicked on a link. Or this person opened all the campaigns and they clicked on all the links. So that's maybe for him, because he's in a kind of a niche industry where people are spending a lot of dollars. That's maybe a way for him to identify who to go after quicker. I mean, he can actually have other automations then trigger based, saying, hey, follow up with this person because they've had a score of X based on your welcome automation. So that would be one way that you could use it.
Right. Yeah. Right here, what I'm doing is I'm assigning points based on the products they purchase. So I got my main product; they get points. If they buy another product, they'll get additional points. And then I have an automation that's set email them at certain point percentages where I'm basically identifying, wow, this guy is a rabid fan. He's buying X amount of products.
Yep. Exactly. And again, it's only going to be as valuable as the thought that you put into it. And make sure that you actually have like rhyme and reason for why you're doing it, because again, it's one of those tools that's super cool to use, but you should never just use it because it's there. There really needs to be purpose and intention behind it. Otherwise, it's going to just be a 50 rule lead score that really has no way to actually measure anything or even tell you data that's valuable.
Right. Anthony's joined us, but we're going to hold off on Anthony just for a second. Can we set up just a really small example rule, and then how we use that in our automation and do everything we've been talking about?
Sure. So go ahead and just click Add a New Rule.
And this is what they want to do first, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So in this, I'm sorry, back up. Go ahead, go back a step.
Okay.
We're adding a new rule, not a new score. So we'll start from scratch. My bad.
Okay.
Yep, so just hit save and then, or back, whatever. Try hitting back. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so hit add new score. We're going to do contact score. The difference is that deal scores are scores related to the CRM, and contact scores are more of just a general score for that individual contact record.
Sure. We'll go over deals in a little bit.
Sure. Okay, so just save the name, and then we're going to start by adding a new rule. So we're going to hit this, and then again we're going to use our segment builder. So in this case, I'm going to say actions, and I'm going to say has opened any, and maybe again I'll be like kind of overly generic here, but we'll just leave it as have they opened any campaign or email.
Okay.
Because again that shows engaged contacts, right? So if somebody's getting them and they're not opening anything, after a while I might want to remove them. So let's leave that there, and then go ahead and say add a. So save that one. Go ahead. And we'll say add 10 points, and then go ahead and say add a new rule. And we're going to do this one based on a link click. And again, we'll keep it really generic just for the example, but under actions, we can say, have they clicked any link?
That's pretty badass. You can use has replied too.
Yeah, the reply tracking is super sweet within, and if you use that though, make sure that you turn reply tracking on. So at the summary and options page of every campaign, there's a thing that says turn reply tracking on, and you have to turn it on for it to work right for you.
Right. Really quick. Okay. All right. Has clicked on a link. Any campaign?
Yep. We'll just say any campaign, any link. Again, this is pretty generic, but what it's allowing you to do is just say, you're adding in not just that people open, but now that they're actually interacting with you and going back to your site, which for most people, that's where the real value comes from. It's not just because somebody opened an email. It's because they actually clicked a link. They're taking some kind of action. And so I might add, instead of doing 10 points, I might say add 20 points. And then what I can do is I know that if anyone has a score, ACE lead score number 1, and they have 30 points, that means they've opened emails and they've clicked on links. And so to me, that's somebody that I might want to add a tag to or something like that.
Okay, that's perfect segue. So how would we do that?
To add a tag?
So they got 30. Yeah, for this to match this criteria that they got 30 points.
Okay, so then what we would do is we'd go to the automations, and we'd say when the score changes, which is on the second to bottom row there, and we're going to say, you'll choose the score there. I don't think we saved that one, so it's not in there yet. But anyways, you'll select the score, and then we're going to say leave it to when it's above. And in this case, we'd put 29 because we have a maximum score of 30, so we want to go above 29. If we put 30, it's not going to go above that. And then this is going to say just run once. So then we can say add start. And then you can hit the plus button, contacts, and add tag. And so then we could add a tag, engaged customer or engaged contact. There you go.
Engaged rabbit.
Perfect. And and that's all it has to do. And to this point, automations can do a lot more than sending emails. So there's sometimes where automations will be just one step like this, and that's okay if it's adding value to it. It doesn't have to be 50 steps. It can be one that's just helping you out and saving you time.
Sure. And do you have to do anything after this? Do you have to end the automation, or you just leave it?
You can just leave it. If they get to the last step and they go on, it'll end automatically. I often will just, you can click the plus button and there's an end automation function. I just put that often there for a visual placeholder because I tend to do things visually. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, Anthony, you ready to come on and ask your question? He muted himself like a good participant. All right, I'm going to look at some questions till he comes back. Yeah, we're going to be covering the deal section, as we said already. Okay, here's a good question. Let's see if we can handle it. So someone has a future event, a webinar, maybe even a live event at a location. What would you recommend for setting that up for as far as email campaigns ahead of time, so you're not just redoing it every single time, if maybe it's like a recurring event that they're doing?
Sure. So when you say reoccurring, do you mean like once a month or?
Yeah, once a month, once a week, quarterly.
Sure. Um, there's, I'll be honest, there's not the greatest way to do that here, but if you go to the campaigns tab and just go ahead and you can create a new campaign.
Oops.
Go. So create a new campaign. There's a really good one here called date-based campaigns, and what this does is it looks at a custom date field. So if you were able to have next webinar coming up for the contact record of maybe they signed up for your webinar April 5th. Date-based campaigns can actually look at that custom date field and send out a message X amount of time before that occurs. So if people are signing up and that date field's being updated, it's going to actually say, every time it's going to say, okay, this one sends out 5 days before, this one sends out 10 days before, etc. There are limitations to it, and that's actually one of the things that we're really trying to improve upon right now, because especially for people that do webinars really heavily, our system, I mean, it's kind of a, you're doing like workarounds. It's not really a great solution, so we'll be the first to admit that. But it just takes time, right? You got to start somewhere. So these date-based campaigns, they'll just go through and they'll look at a custom date field, and they'll do it that way. One of the things too that with the new automation tool that's coming out is that you could put people into a sequence, and then you would have to update it though, when the dates are going. So we don't have truly like reoccurring campaigns that say, every day on the 31st send this out. Again, that's something that we've kind of intentionally done for at least for the time being. So you'll have to kind of use a combination of things, especially for webinars. So again, not the greatest answer, but it's the truth.
And if it was just one event, but it was out in the future, and they just wanted to write everything and have everything ready to go, just as soon as they do the first action, whether it's opting into the form, whatever, but they want it all automated, that would just be simply doing an automation, right?
Yeah, you could do an automation, or you could even do like a regular campaign and schedule it. So if you had a list, like let's say you had an event list, you could schedule any of the campaigns on that list for certain days and times, and then it's going to always send to the most recent version of that list. So as soon as it starts sending, it looks for like, oh hey, here's everybody in the list as of this second, and then it'll send out to everybody else on that list. And so again, there's a couple ways you can approach it, but you could do that as well, or through an automation that just waits until a certain date and time and then goes on.
Okay, Steven says, sort of answer, date-based, yes. Perfect question is, what happens if someone signs up 2 weeks prior versus someone who signs up 2 days before?
Sure. So with a date-based campaign, it's always looking at that date field. So let's say that you have the event email ready to go out 1 day before. It doesn't matter when they've signed up. All it's looking at is that date field. So if you have the date as April 1st and you wanted it to send out the day before, then they could sign up 2 days before, they could sign up 20 days before, 200 days before, it doesn't matter. As soon as it reaches that date, that's when it's going to fire out.
Awesome. Well, Tony's mic is not working, so that's not going to happen. He's still concerned about bouncing.
You know what? Have him, Anthony, you can email me, A as in Adam, Tuttle, Tuttle, at ActiveCampaign.com, and I can answer that. Or you can even just email our sales at ActiveCampaign, and anybody there can help you out as well. So if you have concerns, we can help get that straightened out for you. Just shoot us an email, and we'll help you get it figured out.
Yeah, definitely. I use the live chat all the time, 24/7. Okay, Steven wants to know, can an if-then conditional based on, Steven, your question is kind of, say that again. Do your if-then question again, but a little more clear at the end. You combined some words that does not make any sense. While we're here, let's go ahead and do a real quick, if you want to segment it, how that works, and like which list you want to select based on the segment and all that good stuff.
Sure. So if you're wanting to build a segment here, so you just go ahead and click on the button that says Segment List. Or first, I guess you'll have to select a list, so you already have a test list selected.
So why don't you explain that scenario is if you want to segment certain people, you've got to select every case in which they might be on a certain list, right?
Yep. Okay. Now, well, yes and no, because basically what this is doing is it's looking for whatever lists have segments available to them. Mm-hmm. This is maybe a little confusing. So let's say I create a segment, and a segment can be very broad. So it could like literally, in most cases, it's going to look across your entire database. But you generally create the segments so they're visible on certain lists, if that makes sense. So then you select the list that you want, that has a segment created on it, and again, that can span across more than just that list. It's not necessarily isolated to that. Maybe it says find anybody that has the tag breakthrough email marketing. Right. And if they have that tag, it's going to find it across the entire system, unless you in your segment tell it to look only at one list. And so then once you have, you've clicked the list that owns the segment or is visible on, you can then select the segment, and then you can see Jason has quite a few there, and then you go on from there. You just click the next steps.
Right. Let's cover creating a new segment.
Sure.
So if I know it's a segment or a tag that I know it's only for people that have signed up for any of my email marketing specific lists, I don't need to be checking these different other lists, right?
No, and again, if you go, actually, like, let's kind of save and exit. Let's back out. Let's start from the beginning because it'll make a lot more sense this way. Just hit the exit button. You can actually, like, literally totally exit out of here. Click on the List tab. So on the right-hand side, you can see that we have these different segments, right? And go ahead and just click any of the ones that say like 31 segments on top there. It doesn't matter. So this shows all the segments that we have. When you click into any of the segments here, any one of them is fine. So when you do a segment again, the segments look across the entire database. So they're looking across the whole thing, unless you tell it like this, where you're saying if they're not in a list or if they are in a specific list, things like that. All the boxes that you have checked right now for these different lists, these are telling you which list, when you click on the segments on the right-hand side, you can see it within there. And so this is basically just saying, hey, it's visible on all of these lists. And so, again, the segment itself is much broader than a list, unless you tell it to be on a list. Then it's going to look at exactly that one list or two or whatever that you define. And so when you go to create a segment, definitely keep that in mind. And so basically all that you have to do when you're actually creating or choosing a segment is just make sure that either the segment's available on all the lists or it's available on, like, a lot of people are moving away from having lots of lists. They're using tags much more heavily, and they're only having maybe like one or two lists, and then they'll just have all the segments on a single list that way.
Right. Cool. So let's just real quick, if you want to create a new one.
Sure. So just create a new segment. So we're going to say add our first condition.
And that's probably, this takes it off the name of the campaign, right?
Yep.
So you probably want to make this descriptive. Hang out.
So then, I mean, we've seen this tool already many times. So, this is where you go in, you define it. So in that case, you could say actions. has clicked on a link, and then you could select the exact campaign that you wanted. And then you could say like any link within it, or choose the specific link. And then that's really this tool is used throughout our platform all over the place. And so if you kind of figure it out, excuse me, if you can kind of figure it out, on automations or segments or something like that, you'll be able to use it throughout the entire platform, because it's literally used probably 6 to 10 times in different places on our tool.
So you could actually email only people that have viewed on a mobile device?
Yep. I'm sorry, what was the question?
You can target people that have only the people that have viewed on mobile?
Yeah, and that's something that's new that's been here. So that's a brand new tool to the segment. It was just added.
Nice.
So again, segments are very flexible and they're very powerful based on the actual user's need and stuff like that.
Right. All right, Stephen is okay. So let's say Stephen has a stack of 7 emails before the event date. If early bird signs up, signs up early, they'll get all 7 emails before the event. But if someone signed up one day before, could I set up a date check to send a different email, as it would be overkill to send 7 emails in just one day?
Sure. There's not really a great way to do this with the new automations that, as we're kind of playing around with the new beta. There are ways now that you can say, wait, like say, if the date is this, then take a certain action. But honestly, like there's not a great way to just tell it not to start sending those emails. The problem being that automations always send at the day that you tell it to, and they always go in the order. So if I create an email today and I say, send it out, wait 2 days, send out another email, wait 2 days, send out another email, it's going to always take that path, no matter when I sign up. So that could be, a day from now, it could be a year from now, but it's always going to take that path. We are putting in some conditional things where you could say, wait until it's a certain date, and then at a maximum of 1 day, and then go on to the next step. That way, so you can say like wait for a specific period of time, or wait till a condition is met. If you say wait till a condition is met, that's going to actually look for, and that's where you can put in like wait until there's a certain date in there. And so Jason's done this before, for sure. So let him just put, So if the current day of the month is the 6th. So go ahead and just hit save on that. We'll just keep it really generic for now. And then you can put a time limit on it, so you can say like, wait up to 1 day or 1 hour. So if people can do it, but again, it's never going to just shoot out 7 emails at once unless you've built it to do that. It's always going to put people through. So that's where I said with webinars and stuff, where we certainly are working on improving it, because it's not something that's super webinar friendly right now. And that's where using like the date-based campaigns, those can be helpful, because it's looking for a custom field date, and then it just sends out, no matter when they sign up, it's going to send like the most current email. So if they're 3 days out, it'll send the email that goes out 3 days out, rather than all 7 emails at one time. So again, you're going to have to find some kind of workarounds. It's not totally built for that at this point, but that's where we're just continuing to improve upon it.
Awesome. All right. Let's see what I was going to do. Okay, so let's go over, did lead scoring. So what about deals and pipelines?
Yeah. So Deals is our CRM, and this is actually we've just started building a completely new version of it, or I'll say version 2.0. So it's we're just building it out and making it better. But basically, Deals is our CRM, and there's kind of three basic components to it. The first is, so if you go up on the left-hand side, it says General Pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Just click on that. A pipeline is similar to a list that's used for email marketing. So it could be new leads, it could be existing customers, it could be nonprofits versus or online customers versus brick and mortar. Really, again, that's going to be dependent on your business, but it's just a category.
Right.
And so that can be whatever you need. Once you have the pipeline added in.
And what about this? So if you had like 2 sales reps?
Yep. So we literally just added this in based on some changes that we're making in our sales structure. But so the round robin will start assigning deals. So as deals are coming in, if you had 2 or 3 sales reps here, it's going to start, deal 1's going to go to the first user, deal 2 to the second, deal 3, and then it's just keep going in that cyclical pattern, and indefinitely.
Right.
So they'll start assigning deals based on that, which again, that's brand new.
Distributed based on value.
So in that one, you could say if they're go ahead and select a user. Let's try that. So you could distribute, if somebody has a certain value, then it would be going out after to, so maybe you have a sales rep that's really good with your high volume. In our case, it'd be high volume accounts, so we consider high volume accounts pretty much anything over a 250,000 contacts is where we're starting to get to that high volume range. And so we might want sales rep 1, not the newbie, to take it,
Right.
And stuff like that. So you can distribute it out that way. And like I said, some of these are still being kind of tweaked out in the beta because it's literally 3 days old at this point.
How do you determine the value?
I believe it's done based on the default currency, but honestly, I don't even know at this point because I've never used this function yet. So, I'll just admit that because it's so new.
And then disable automatic assignment, that would be where you're manually assigning to reps?
Yeah, it's going to manually assign, or whoever you have here. So maybe you have a pipeline where you always want to go to a certain sales rep. It's just not going to do anything automated. It's going to be much more of a manual process.
All right, so let's just do round robin real quick.
Okay.
Add pipeline.
So then the second part of this is to create your stages. So you'll see here we have 3 by default. You can add in as many as you want or as few, as long as there's 1. The biggest thing is to make sure that, it's going with that sales funnel that you have in your system. And so the sales funnel will go through that way, and you can create it to be, again, whatever you want. So when I do sales demos, I have my first pipeline is called upcoming sales demos. Then I have my first, second, and third follow-ups, and then either we won it or we lost it at that point. And so I kind of go through that pattern. And again, the one thing that I like is that you can always add in more stages. So there's been times where I was like, man, we really need some more stuff in here, and then I just add in an extra step, or as I'm kind of learning the sales process, stuff like that. So that's the second part of it, is defining those stages. And then the third part, go ahead and click on Add a Deal, is the deals themselves. And so go ahead and just give it a title, and maybe just put in the email address. You don't have to put in everything else. But
okay. Okay.
All right. Yep. Click Add a Deal. So now we have a deal in there. So if you just hover over it, click View. This takes us, and you can just click anywhere that's not in that white box, and we won't walk through all the little help.
But that's a cool little demo, right? You can go through.
Yeah, it'll walk you through what all the different parts are.
Awesome.
Of it.
I like those.
Yeah.
All right.
And so this is the deal, and the deal, basically what it's doing is, you can see it shows, the contact. Now, you notice that he didn't put a name in, but it already has a name for him because it recognizes a name associated with an email address that's already in the system. So it's smart enough to pick that up. It's going to look at the personal data that's already in any of the custom fields. Tags. You can create tasks as well. So over on the left-hand side, if we scroll up a bit, right now we have call, email, lunch, meeting. But if I go all the way to the right, there's 3 little dots, and those 3 little up. There you go.
Yes.
So I can say manage task types, and again, you can control these. So if you say, well, I never meet someone for lunch, you could get rid of that and stuff like that. So it's really, again, flexible to what you are. And then the task types, this is a task manager. That's really what it's doing. So you can add in tasks for different days or different things like that. Additionally, you can set up, an email account here. So through your IMAP settings or Exchange, if you have an Exchange server, you can set it up so that your personal email account, so we use Gmail app or Google Apps for all of our stuff here internally, and I can connect my account to it. And then when I'm sending an email, if somebody emails me that I have an open deal with, it has to be open. It can't be marked as won or lost. But if I do that, then it'll record that actually within the CRM itself, within the deals. Additionally, you can add people to lists from here, or you can remove them from lists, and automation. So you can actually start and stop automations from the CRM as well. And so that's.
Someone had a question. Is there a way of creating a deal with personalization fields in the deal title? At the moment, all my contacts go through the automation, and the deals are all titled the same. Would love the title with their name or any other personalization.
Yeah, that we don't have it now, but we actually literally were talking about this yesterday, and it's on our to-do list now. So awesome. I don't have an ETA for it, but it's definitely something that we just added. So we're working on putting more personalization to different parts of the platform, and so it's certainly something we're aware of as that needs to be done at some point. So it's a weakness now, but we're definitely aware of that and working on it.
Awesome. What about search on name in deal creation?
So just what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that, McGiver?
If you put in the email address and it's already somebody that has a name and stuff in the system, it should pull in their name automatically.
Right.
Yeah. So if it's a contact that's in the system, it's going to look for that when the deal's created, as it did here. And so it should always look back, because our contact records are not necessarily, some systems have it, basically if a contact's on 3 lists, it's 3 contacts. Our system, we just view lists as a category for you. And so you could have the same person on 6 different lists, and they're just one person at the end of the day with the name and an email address, and everything goes back to that email.
Right. Anything else that we can share right here as a generic example?
I would just say that you can add the task. So go ahead and add a task and just say follow up with Adam or something like that, and you can then click on the date, and you can say next week. That's going to go automatically a week from now, and then just say add task, and this shows it. So now it's green, so that means that it's coming in the future. If you were to log in here 8 days from now, that's going to be red, saying that it's past due. And so then you can say, always see what you have coming up and stuff like that. And if actually you click on the button that says deal list up on the top left there, there you go. So if you click on that button, on the right-hand side.
You cut out for a second.
Sorry, go up to the right-hand side.
Add deal?
The 3 little lines that are 2 buttons over. There you go. This will give you a list view of things, which there's only 1 contact here. But if you had 50 tasks, it's going to always put them in order of priority. So it starts with things that are past due. The longest past due being first, then things that are currently due, things that don't have any assignments to them, and then things that are upcoming. And so you'll always be able to see like a quick task list for yourself of what you need to do that way.
Awesome. All right, guys. Any other questions? Any final questions?
If not now, go ahead. I was just going to say, like, always feel free to jump on chat with us or send it to sales@ActiveCampaign, and we'll be happy to answer your questions later.
Sure. Someone said they're ready to jump from Ontraport.
Oh, good. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah. When I did a post on LinkedIn about this call, someone said they see ActiveCampaign as all the features of Infusionsoft at get response prices.
Yeah, and that's the goal. I mean, if you've been with us around or followed us for a while, you'll see that like our pricing structure changed, a while back. But we're really trying to give like probably one of the better values out there. And I think one of the things that we've talked, like, we certainly have our weaknesses and our shortcomings in the platform, but I think, as Jason can attest to, even as I think you've been using this pretty hardcore for about 6 months now, and
Over a year.
Over a year. So in that time, like, we've added a ton of new features. And so we're really aggressive with our development. And so we want to not only have the best now, but continue improving upon it as we move forward.
Yeah, and if you guys ever want to suggest a feature, go to feedback.activecampaign.com. All right, any last call for questions? It's been an hour. Adam's got stuff to do. Steven says thank you. Carl says thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Yep, there will be a replay. All right, Adam, I appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Jason. I appreciate your time.
All right, man. Talk soon.
Thanks.
Bye. All right, guys, I am still available. So if you have any questions, I will go through to the best of my abilities from my experience, from the experience that I've done setting up stuff for clients. Again, I'm not an AC consultant per se. If you use AC and I'm doing email marketing consulting or product launch consulting, yes, I can do stuff in AC as part of my services, but that's not my main goal. I don't say, hey, I can set up your AC stuff. You're welcome, Lay. Everybody else, Amos. And again, if you haven't signed up, feel free to use my link, emailresponsewarrior.com/AC. emailresponsewarrior.com/AC. All right, Amos, I would love to see an automation where you show how you handle follow-ups on people which are not responded. Good question. And that's what is awesome about AC, is that once you see it, you're like, oh, wow, that's easy. I can do that. Versus Infusionsoft, it's like, oh, I'd love to do that. I'm going to have to pay $100 an hour, $200 an hour, or whatever for a consultant to do it. All right, so I'm just going to use this one. All right. So if you've already sent an email in the automation, I've seen someone do this before. You don't want to do the if-else right away because you want to give them time to respond. You're welcome, Martin Feen. We can use some site tracking too, but sorry, that's not your fault, it's my fault. I just need to focus and then look back at the questions. All right, so if you set up an automation, you have an email go out, okay? Again, don't do an if-else right away because I've seen this before. You expect you know, within 10 minutes, people are going to respond. I say at least give them a day. Wait 1 day. So what you do is say wait. Specified period of time. So you can just do 1 day, or you can do 24 hours. You can do minutes. That's pretty awesome right there. Very months, years. It's pretty awesome. So we're just going to do, for this example, we're going to do 24 hours. Click save. Wait 24 hours. Then we're going to do the if then. Thanks, Arfine. Appreciate it. All right. So actions has clicked on the link, or you can do opened. Let's do a click on a link. I'm going to say, so ActiveCampaign, Hangout number 1, any link, register. So I sent out initial email for this Hangout, and now I want to see if they've clicked on a link or not. What I like to do, this is what Adam taught me, is don't do the positive, do the negative. So I don't like that. Okay, so has not clicked on a link, the register link for this email, okay? So then it's going to give you the branches. So if it's yes, that means they haven't clicked on the link. So I'm going to do plus again. Remember, I've already waited 24 hours, so I'm free to fire away. Send an email, and there you have it. There you can send the email. And that's what's awesome about ActiveCampaign is you can do clicked on a link, or what if you just sent a plain text email? You can literally send a plain text email or just a plain generic looking HTML email and say, if you ask for a response, you can say has replied or has not replied. Boom. And follow up again. And when I do follow-ups, I mean, you can get some response if you send an email in the morning and you just resend it again in the evening. But I think the best bang for the buck is to switch it up, change the subject line, change the opening of the email. Is there a way to track what time a person usually opens the email and then schedule future emails to go out at that time? It would be an awesome feature. Totally agree. So you need to go to feedback.activecampaign.com, and I would search because that might be already in there. I know that you can already track people's engagement periods or trends, but I think the final part of that is being able to schedule an email to go out at an individual's engagement trend. So definitely go to feedback.activecampaign.com. If I remember, I'll go ahead and add the request. I seem to be pretty good at getting stuff going. And if you haven't joined the ActiveCampaign users group on Facebook, you definitely want to join. There's like over 150 people there. Andre Chaperone, Justin Brook, a lot of big power users. Just go to Facebook and search for ActiveCampaign, and you'll find it. It's like ActiveCampaign Juggernauts user group. Sure thing. Welcome, Alze. A little late, but better late than never. All right, site tracking examples. Stephen, what do you mean by site tracking examples? Doing an automation based on site tracking, or what? Because to actually do it, it's pretty straightforward. You just click on apps, site tracking, you copy this right before the closing body tag in your email or your web page, and that's it. And they have a free WordPress plugin. If you're in WordPress, you just search for ActiveCampaign, and that works great. I put that in my member area. And then when someone, a few times when people have tried to get a refund, like, yeah, it really wasn't what I thought it was, blah, blah, blah. And I replied, I was like, well, Joe, honestly, I looked at your contact record, and you've only been to one page in the membership area, but that's fine. I just refunded you. And then I leave it at that, just to pour coals on top of their head and make them feel like crap. And hopefully they'll have trouble sleeping at night. Oh, Ozley's been on. Just joined the chat. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want some Jedi ActiveCampaign membership integration, definitely join the user group, because I'm going to be releasing a suite of tools that I developed. You know, I was the idea guy, and then Norio developed for me. So basically, my membership area, you know, for free, you just install the ActiveCampaign plugin, and it tracks every single page. That's awesome. So you know where your customers are going, and then you can do things like, because you know what's the most valuable content. Like, so when someone orders from me, I go, hey, you know, here's the best bang for the buck sections, because I know if they check those sections out, regardless if they're slackers, if they just see those sections, they'll be like, man, this is awesome, versus if they don't consume it, or if they're just browsing around and they go to the beginner sections and they're more advanced. So just with this free ActiveCampaign tracking code, you can do automations once they become a member and periodically check if they've gone to a certain piece of content. But with the suite of AC tools, I know every single video they watched, how much they watched of the video, which files they've downloaded, and based on the file, they're tagged with the file type and the name of the file, all automatically. Which audios they've listened to, and same thing, how much of the audios they've listened to. So it's pretty badass, and we've come up with the whole Abandoned Basket series, so look forward to that. Okay, automation based on page visits, interests. Okay, automation. So this is not active, so I'm just going to play around here again. I'll just do it up here. Okay. So, well, if then, so you would go under site and event data. So again, has not visited or visited. So I'm going to say has not visited. You can do specific URLs. So that's one way to do it. Or you can do site and event data again and go through the actual events. So I use events and tags. I just prefer tags. I think it's way easier than events, but I do both just in case. So look, you got download an MP4. So then I can put the exact MP4 video download. All right. Again, here's video watched. I do a specific video. Again, got download, MP3s. Oh, here we got some EIW, that's Email Inbox Warrior. That's my email deliverability product. So simply if it happened. And then I could do, so if they added to cart the email inbox warrior like more 2 times and they haven't bought, that means something is up, and that means now I can, all right. If they've gone through twice and haven't bought, then I'm going to send them an email. Or I'm going to notify Little Bunny, my wife, to follow up with them, or I'm just going to send them an email myself. How do I do everything that I just described? With a suite of tools that I had Norio, the AC programming juggernaut. We're going to be releasing them. It's going to be super easy. I mean, you're going to be inserting your API key from the apps. And then copying and pasting. And you're just going to be like, holy crap. Actually, it's not there. It's under settings, I believe. Yep, under settings, API. So you just grab the API URL and API key and Shazam. And there will be email templates for the abandoned basket series and all that good stuff. Events coding specific to you. If it's not covered in the suite of tools, yes, Norio again, but he's super busy. And within 7 days, we're going to be launching Email Image Magic. So I've been doing dynamic personalization of images for over 6 years. Hold on one sec. So Norio's super busy doing this. I actually already had a script. I had the code, and usually I get a programmer to adjust the positioning of the text and the personalization. Let me wait till that ends. Emailimagemagik.com. So, yeah, Norio is super busy. He's going to get that done. Like I said, I already had a script from another programmer that I paid in 2009. And whenever I wanted to do a new image, I would basically just pay Fiverr, or if I currently had a in-house programmer, get them to customize it, because, you know, putting in a new image, doing the text was pretty simple. But it's just the positioning, depending on what type of image was it and where the white space was, and then placing the personalization That was always a pain that I needed to get a programmer to do. And so back in 2013, I think it was, I actually started paying programmers to do a utility to make that simple, so I could just keep on doing over and over again as many different images as I wanted, and make it easier to do the placement of the text and where I wanted personalization. It's not just first name too; you can do all kinds of stuff that I've done a lot and tested a lot. And they just never got it done. So Norio, he's a stud. He's done programming for Robert Curry of Feed a Starving Crowd and Andre Chaperon, a lot of big time marketers. So we partnered up, and he's taking my direction and making it super dead simple plugin that you're just going to upload the image, choose a font, put in the text you want, put in where you want the personalization, be able to move it around to make it appear just right. Click save, copy and paste. Like every single part of the image code, you just copy and paste in your emails or your web pages, and it'll be done. And then I'm going to include some bonuses of the which, the what, and the why, because you don't want people just saying, "Oh, that's clever. Oh, that's cool." You want to engage and get them to respond and make more money. No, it's not going to be a SaaS. There will be a updates and support limit, probably 6 months, maybe a year. We're still deciding, but it's going to be a plug-in. There'll be single license and unlimited licenses and all that. EmailimageMagick.com. The cart abandonment, yeah, that'll be part of the AC suite of tools. I'm also including it in my product launch warrior product. The AC tools are not plugins. We might make it into a plugin just to make it easier, but right now it's not a plugin. Email Image Magic will be a plugin. Yeah, right now it's just custom code that I use on multiple sites. It's really simple to use for me, but we might make it into a plugin just to make it even easier for everyone. But there'll be tutorials, and most of it, again, as long as you have put in your API URL and your API license, it should be pretty much copy and paste. Just the plugin might make it even simpler. How's that different with the current event coding? It does some tagging, and the event tracking is different than site tracking. Okay, so let me go there. Oh, here we go, settings. Let's go to apps. So you got your event, you got to give your event name, and then your event data, which is your description. And depending on what you're using, you want to make sure the email is in there, so it's associated with the contact. Of course, if they click on a link from an email, that should be good to go. Yeah, that basically is just going to, you have to put in that event code for every single page, or do some kind of programming to make it dynamically update. So again, a lot of the work that I've done with Norio, it's been tagging and event data, whereas tagging is a lot easier to do stuff a lot of times versus events. And that event data code is not going to tell you dynamically what type of file name, unless you get it in there somehow. And it's not going to tell you how much of a video they watched or how much of audio. Okay, so adding a tag based on page visits. Okay. Let's just do here. So total page visits greater than 10. Again, you can do less than, and you can do less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. It's pretty badass. Less than 2. All right. It's less than 2. Yes, I'm going to. So again, you might want to wait. So there's a period of time. So maybe they get their first welcome email in the automation. You wait a week. So wait a week. Then you do the if then. Okay. So they visited less than 2 pages of my membership site. 2 pages in a week. Okay. Well, something's up. They have a greater chance of refunding. They're not seeing the value if they're not consuming the content. So then you send them an email. Shazam, right there. And you wanted to, and you could also add a tag. Not consuming enough. So you could tag them that way. Or if they've visited more than 2, or you can do more than 10, then conditions or work, no, context, sorry. Add a tag, consuming content. You can do multiples. So the more than 10 page visits, I'm going to tag them as consuming content, and I'm going to send them an email too and say, follow up with them and say, hey, I see that you've been, consuming the content and visiting different modules of the course. I was just wondering, do you have any questions? How are you enjoying it? Any suggestions on how it could be improved? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, wait is good. That's what mistake I made when I first started. I wasn't waiting enough. Yeah, we're using the Webinar Jam Studio that's not available yet. It's pretty awesome. There's just a few things that I would like to see changed, but otherwise it is insane. Okay, if you want to check it out, emailresponsewarrior.com/webinar jam. Okay, Mike, not right now. Any other questions about using ActiveCampaign? I'm gonna have to split this video because I think it just creates anxiety in the mind when they see that it's over 2 hours. So I think I need to split this up. Probably maybe split it into 1 hour segments and then maybe split it up into individual sections as well. Multi-purpose. Yes, either my list, you're on my list now. You need to be on the Facebook group no matter what. But yeah, I'll definitely be updating on the Facebook group as well. Someone asked if they want to see my affiliate link for AC. Yeah, if you've got a free account and you didn't use my link, I think if you use my link now, I'll get credit. That's my AC affiliate link. Do I have any good automations for cleaning my lists? I do. But it's too complex to get in on here. You just need to be careful about with quote unquote cleaning your list. A lot of people throw away good money. I know I have clients that know for a fact that they get orders, big orders, from people that haven't done anything in 2 to 3 years, sometimes even longer. Tagging them and not emailing them as much is usually the way to go. But if you're just doing affiliate marketing, or if you just got really low priced products and your lifetime customer value is really low, then depending on how many contacts, the cost of having the contact in your account might outweigh the potential sale later. So you have to weigh that for yourself and either tag them and not email them as much, or remove them after a certain amount of time. Yeah, sorry about the screen size. I think I made it smaller because someone was complaining, but I think it was unique to them. So you guys tell me. I just enlarged it. Is it much better like that? I just went full screen. But Lil Bunny's about to make me some num num. So I got to get going. Appreciate it, guys. And again, make sure you're on the ActiveCampaign Facebook group. It's free. Just search for ActiveCampaign in Facebook. It's the ActiveCampaign Juggernauts user group. If you got a free trial, if you haven't even taken a free trial at ActiveCampaign, feel free to use my account at emailresponsewarrior.com/AC. ActiveCampaign is hands down the best. Like, I have a client right now, they're using Infusionsoft to collect orders. If it wasn't the start of the project where I'm really trying to get the best bang for the buck, the highest potential revenue with the least amount of cost, I would say scrap Infusionsoft, use ActiveCampaign, and integrate with the third-party shopping cart, because it's so easy to integrate with ActiveCampaign. It's just, I have these 2 lists. One, what we can do now, and then I have a huge list that would see immediate revenue potential with hardly amount of cost if they're using ActiveCampaign. With Infusionsoft, it's a nightmare. Same with any other service that I've used. I've used the Juggernauts, Entreport, Confusionsoft, Lyris, ExactTarget. ActiveCampaign smokes them all with the power that it gives you to get the right message at the right time to the right person, without wanting to kill yourself, because it's too complex. It's brain dead simple. So hopefully you got a lot out of today's call. If you want to check out my email response warrior course, where I teach you how to increase the response of any email you send, regardless of the autoresponder, but especially with ActiveCampaign, go to emailresponsewarrior.com and be on the lookout for my next hangout. I usually have them once a week. A lot of times it's just Q&A on anything about email marketing. And I'll talk to you soon, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.